Asus Zenfone 5, great hardware meets OK software. The Asus Zenfone 5 is a bit like the OnePlus 6. It looks and feels similar to a more expensive phone and has impressive tech inside, but is fairly affordable. You get a rich 6.2-inch screen, a mid-range Qualcomm chipset and generally capable cameras that let you take normal and ultra-wide shots. Its night shooting performance could be better, and it needs some stability fixes, but this phone represents great value. However, given that the OnePlus 6 and others exist, it has got some competition. We don't yet have worldwide prices for the Asus Zenfone 5. In the UK it costs £349.99, around $620 Australian dollars. That's the same price as the Nokia 7 Plus, a little less than the Honor 10 and significantly less than the OnePlus 6. Based in the US, importers will sell you the phone for around $410. Again, it sits in a similar position relative to competitors from other brands. We think this is probably the most attractive phone in Asus's new lineup, but there's also a more powerful version, the Zenfone 5Z. It's set to cost £500, around $700, 885 Australian dollars, but swaps the Snapdragon 636 chipset for a high-end Snapdragon 845. Asus talks up the Zenfone 5's camera as its key feature. It has a 12MP main rear sensor with an 8MP wide-angle secondary lens. This sits in place of the zoom camera many high-end phones offer. The main sensor is large, and it's stabilized with optical image stabilization, OIS, too. This is a good camera, just don't overload your expectations. The Zenfone 5's night images are not much better than the best at the price, including the Nokia 7 Plus. Elsewhere, you get a mid-range Snapdragon 636 chipset, 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. There's also a 3,300 mAh battery that lasts a solid day, or a day and a half if you go easy on the Zenfone 5. Its screen is large at 6.2 inches, but as it has a notch this handles like a traditional 5.5-inch phone. It is big rather than gigantic, and those extra screen inches make games more enjoyable. The Asus Zenfone 5 is, like so many phones of 2018, a mix of aluminum and toughened glass. There's glass on the front and back, metal along the sides. All edges are smooth, rounded off. But the Asus Zenfone 5 is not all that curvy. It's a 3D rectangle, with no major tapering on either side. This is not bad as such, but does make the phone feel a little larger than some, particularly as the screen is big too. We switched from the LG G7 Think to the Asus Zenfone 5, and the Asus feels, and is, substantially bigger. There's nothing to complain about in the numbers, though. The Asus Zenfone 5 is 7.7mm thick. As it has a slim border and notched design, it's very pocketable and easy to handle for a device with a 6.2-inch screen. 6-inch phones used to feel like phone-tablet crossbreeds. This is definitely a phone. It also has a design touch or two used in Asus's ZenBook laptops. A layer that plays with reflected light sits under the rear glass, making it look as though beams fire out of the back fingerprint scanner in all directions. This is a shiny, almost dazzling finish, but it's nowhere near as reflective as the Honor 10, another top pick at the price. The glass blurs reflections, avoiding the mirror-like finish some phones have. It's a good look. The Zenfone 5's rear design has a characteristic Asus appearance, while maintaining the standards set by other top-end phones. It also doesn't try anything too off-putting. There's still a headphone jack, there are no superfluous buttons, just a volume rocker and power button, and while 64GB of storage is enough for many of us, you can also add a microSD card to the SIM tray. The fingerprint scanner is one of the Asus Zenfone 5's weak points, though. It sits on the back, a slightly recessed circular pad. It's unusually unreliable. Sometimes it works fine and is just a little slow compared to the best. At other times it repeatedly fails to recognize your finger, making you input your PIN or password instead. The Zenfone 5 likely uses scanner parts similar to those of other mid-range phones, so this is most likely a problem with the software rather than the hardware. However, it is annoying. And as you'll see through this review, all of the phone's issues are down to similar lapses in optimization.